Yo, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to Baloney Basketball. Here with a special guest today, known as Triple Play Fantasy. You might have seen our collab video recently, but we're back collabing here today. How's it going, my man?
It's going pretty well, man. It's funny. Kristaps Porzingis had like a 22-11 game after I trashed his contract, and maybe he heard that.
Yeah, he definitely was listening. He wants to be more than just the guy with the good haircut, as you once said.
He
Um,
does have a good haircut.
but I mean, we're both doing pretty good right now. As of right now, the Bulls and the Wizards, both of our teams, are tied for the top record in the Eastern Conference, which I think that's pretty cool. Like it's almost like it was meant to be that we're recording this right now.
It's like we got to take our victory laps early because end of season, this probably won't be. At least the Wizards. I could see the Bulls staying there.
I mean, first seed, it would be awesome, but who knows? We will hop into the Wizards later on in the show, but let's start off with what I like to call is like the Great Pacific Scandal. That's what I labeled it as. Because, the Phoenix Suns, they're in the Pacific Division, Portland Trailblazers, close to the Pacific Ocean. And, both those teams in the front office, they're being investigated for, workplace misconduct. I think with the Suns, it's more like issue of racism and misogyny with like owner Robert Sarver, and the Blazers, it's like concerns about the environment, like for non-player personnel at practice facilities. So, I mean, just this whole thing, like this whole issue for the NBA, what do you make of it, really?
It's interesting. I feel like about Phoenix, like we've all known this for years. Like everybody knows Sarver's cheap, he's racist, he's sexist, and nobody's done anything about it. And it's interesting how when DeAndre Ayton doesn't get his contract extension, it kind of leaks whether there's something related to that or not. Who knows? The Portland one's a little bit more interesting to me. And I thought this was a very interesting quote from Barry Hecker, who's been in the NBA personnel and was actually with the Blazers and Clippers. And he said, in the NBA, nobody wants to tell the truth. They're all covering for each other. So people have
Wow.
probably known about this for years. They've tried to probably keep it under wraps. If you guys haven't checked out Dan Dickau's podcast, he worked with the Blazers for a little bit, and he just said he's aggressive all the time. Dropping f bombs here and there. Wants to take all the success when the team is doing well, and when the team isn't, he's not one to take blame. Obviously hired Chauncey Billups without doing any background research about the allegations back in the late '90s. So I'm just glad that these guys are getting held accountable and that, their money and fame isn't getting them out of everything.
Yeah, and I think I was even looking at some articles like they discussed how it would be even harder for the Sun situation than probably the Blazers because it's hard like to get rid of an owner, I'd say. But I mean, like situations like this, you got to do something. Otherwise, like players, like they're not going to want to be in an environment like that. It's just going to be too toxic. But
Do you think it's going to be like a Donald Sterling where eventually there's so much of a push to get him out? Or do you think like some audio or like video clip needs to come out as kind of the straw that broke the camel's back?
I feel like now, like nowadays, like you probably don't even need that. Like I feel like that would be icing on the cake, but I feel like people are just easy to jump to, one side or another. And it seems like everyone has been pushing like this narrative right here because I don't know, it just seems like it happens pretty frequently for the in the Suns organization. But maybe this is why like I don't know, like their players have been like it seems like in a funk to start the year. Like the Phoenix Suns, they've kind of turned it around, but they don't look like they have the same motivation so far this season. And then with the Portland Trailblazers, I mean Damian Lillard's like struggling. So maybe this is like a big distraction that nobody's kind of addressing here. And I don't know. I just think that maybe it seems pretty much too toxic. But I don't know. Like does that make sense? I don't know if I'm like getting there with it.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably because they were mentioning like think about you play a game and then you're asked about your performance and then nothing that you have any involvement with that is probably detrimental to your success as well, and people just start asking you that. And now it's like you're getting barreled. Damian Lillard averaging way below what he normally does compared to and mix in with stuff that's going on outside of his control. It's probably very toxic.
Yeah, that was just like the main point I was making. But we can move on. We could talk about the big brawl that happened this week between Jokic and Markieff Morris. Now they're like, siblings are going at it on social media. So do you think that the NBA made the right move in like suspending Jokic and like fining Morris and Jimmy Butler? And what do you think of the whole altercation?
So I think they actually should have suspended Jokic for more than one game. Like I understand where it was coming from, kind of the retaliation of Markieff Morris, but he blatantly shoved him without him looking. And Jokic has been kind of accused of a dirty player himself. He's certainly not one to back down. Markieff Morris, like I'm a Wizards fan, and he brought the Death Row DC identity when he was with the Wizards when they had Wall, Beal, Porter, and Gortat, and they had kind of a similar physical rivalry with the Celtics back in the day. So I think it was just two people that are kind of strong headed. I'm looking forward to the rematch November 29th. I don't know if you're a betting guy. I'm betting the under in that game because I bet it's going to be a very physical, defensive game, and I don't think there's going to be any easy buckets allowed.
Yeah, I hadn't even looked at when they play next. That's pretty close. I'm going to be looking forward to that as well. Um, but yeah, I kind of agree with you. I don't know why they suspended Jokic for one game. I mean, I had a feeling he was going to get suspended longer than that. Especially, I think back to remember like a few years ago when the Lakers and Rockets had that fight with like Rondo and Brandon Ingram and Chris
Yeah,
Paul and stuff. Like, didn't they all get suspended? Like, a lot of them got suspended for like 2 games or more, and like they were doing almost nothing. Like Jokic, like I mean, he literally threw his elbow into the guy's like back, but like right near his spine. Like that's the thing I was looking at. I'm like, that could be dangerous right there.
I think the one game suspension is the biggest BS for superstars in the NBA. Because like think about like a Joel Embiid. Like every third or fourth game when healthy, quote unquote healthy, he has a rest day. Like this is a rest day for Jokic. It's a rest day without pay. If you really want to like make it impactful and say, here's the precedent, suspend him 5 games and
Right,
say like, hey, look, we know what's going on. Don't do it. And maybe suspend Morris one game then, because he's not a superstar player. He's a role player that, each game is going to try to make an impact. He's kind of fighting for the next contract. And, when those things start to catch up, once again, everybody cares about their money. So once you take that away, I think they start thinking about it a little bit more.
I mean, I do think Jokic did have the right though to go after him. I'm not saying that. I will ask you though before we move on. In a fight, would you who do you think would win between the Jokic brothers and the Morris brothers? Who are you taking?
Uh, I'm taking the Morris brothers because I feel like they're
Oh,
just street fighters. Like, I read an article that they like did everything together at Kansas, and anytime like one was getting in a fight, they'd be like, "All right, well, you're gonna fight both of us then." So that's the thing. They roll deep. The Jokic brothers have the height, but I think of like Porzingis. Like, didn't Porzingis get his ass beat outside a club in Italy? Like, just because you're tall doesn't mean anything. Like, you got to have that grit.
anything to go back to Kristaps Porzingis.
That's true. What about you? Who are you taking?
But I feel like the Jokic brothers would win. I mean, first of all, like
Oh,
if Jokic, like Nikola Jokic, is involved, like they have a 3v2, so it's already kind of a advantage there. But also, I mean, one of his brothers is like a professional fighter, and they're
I
like
didn't know that.
they're jacked, they're huge as well. So I don't
Oh, I
know, like
didn't know that.
yeah,
I didn't know that.
they're tough. I don't know. I wouldn't mess with them. I know like they always say like sometimes Serbians can get a little crazy. So,
Can we put this over Frank Gore and Darren Williams boxing on pay-per-view? Can we have the Morris twins versus the Jokic brothers?
yeah, I'd probably pay to see it to be honest.
I would too.
But I don't know. I just wanted to see what you'd say. But let's move on. Let's talk about a team that's been playing better than anyone so far in the NBA this year, and that's the Golden State Warriors. They're sitting at the top of the NBA standings as of today, and Steph Curry just recently dropped a 50 bomb on the people they say is going to be the next Steph Curry and Trey Young. So, do you think that they are serious contenders this year? And do you think that Steph Curry so far looks like the MVP frontrunner?
Yeah, I mean, Steph Curry really carried the team on his back last year, and I think there was so much crap that he was getting over the years because it's like, oh, he won his championships having, a great backcourt teammate. And then with Kevin Durant, like, The year before that, they blew a 3-1 lead. Steph Curry has never won a Finals MVP. All he can do is shoot. And he's really shown that he's evolved his game. He's gotten better facilitating. I think he's more aggressive with it. And for the Warriors being contenders, I mean, Andrew Wiggins has been more efficient. He's shooting 47% from the field this year, 35 from three. Kevon Looney, I think we finally saw the upside that we thought we might get from him. He had 11 and 17 yesterday. I love Jordan Poole as kind of a second scoring option. Otto Porter off the bench kind of fits in with that mold of looking for shooters. And they haven't even gotten James Wiseman and Klay Thompson back. So, yeah, there might be a little bit of cohesion issues right away, but they're probably one of the deepest teams in the NBA. And I kind of like that they had a down year last year to let everyone get healthy.
Yeah, I think the other guys are definitely stepping up a little bit more this year with, Jordan Poole, like you said, Damian Lee as well. So it provides a lot. I think they're currently leading the league too in 3-point shooting. So there's
Yeah.
also that. And then, like you said, when they get Clay and Wiseman back, it might take some time, but um, like they're still. I think the fact that they're already like 10-1 at the time that we're recording this already says enough that like that's a hard record to blow in the sense where it's like you're going to fall out of the playoff picture. So they're for sure going to make the playoffs. They're for sure going to be like a talented team. In terms of like the top contender, like I wouldn't have them as my favorite yet until I see more because you also got to realize some of the teams they've played, like the Rockets, the uh,
Yeah.
Pelicans, the Thunder twice. So like I got to wait till I see like them against more serious
So
contenders.
who's your number one contender in the West?
In the West, I actually believe it's going to be the Utah Jazz.
I'm okay with that.
I,
I'm
I
okay with
think
that. If they're
they're such a well-rounded team as well. I know the Warriors have had great defense too this year. I believe they're number one in defense, but the Jazz offensively and defensively, I don't know. I just think that they have a lot. But in terms of the Warriors, well, I guess I just touched on the Warriors. In terms of MVP frontrunner, for if it's Steph Curry, he's definitely up there. I think he could be anywhere like 3 to 5 range. But I think in terms of individual performance, I'd probably have to go with Kevin Durant as of right now, or maybe Nikola Jokic. I think those two guys each have like a serious argument. Um, but yeah, that's just how I feel with it. I don't know. Do you think he's the front runner right now for MVP or?
I do just because like you look at the other teams, like Denver is a little bit over 500 and Jokic won it last year. So, I think the voter fatigue is sometimes real. Like that's the reason LeBron doesn't get it or why Giannis hasn't gotten as many votes. And James Harden has been averaging close to a triple double the last week. So, I think just because the Warriors have the best record, Steph hasn't won it in a couple of years. I'd say he's the front runner right now, but it's not like a runaway. I don't think it's a fluke. I think that they had really good matchups. So, for example, they played the Knicks, who scored the least amount of points per game last year, but were really good at defense. And what we saw is when the Knicks were behind, they didn't really have a go-to scorer. Julius Randle did a lot of isolation ball, and I think that's what they tried to improve on this season, bringing in Kemba Walker, having Derrick Rose re-signed on another deal, Obi Toppin, Kevin Knox, hopefully taking the next steps. But so that was a favorable matchup, and then Philly just as they looked very dysfunctional, and they weren't really a match for the Bucks in the Eastern Conference Finals. They've also had a tough schedule to begin the year. They're 1-7 on the road. They're 3-1 at home, so they've played twice as many road games as home games. They've played Utah twice, the new look Wizards twice, which I thought I'd never say them being a tough team, the Nets and the Warriors. So that's kind of a little bit of the rough schedule. And you're right, they're not playing defense. And I think kind of what we saw in a little bit of foreshadowing with the Wizards, you can't always bank on outscoring your opponent because if you have an off shooting night, then you're not, disciplined on the other side of the ball to get stops.
I just feel like this early in the year, I don't value winning too much. I mean, like
Yeah.
if you're like 1-10, then like yeah, like you're not going to be
Bang,
up
bang,
there.
bang,
But
bang, getting it.
yeah, but I mean, like I feel like Jokic, he's just over 500. Kevin Durant, he's one of the top seeds right now in the East. So I don't know, and they're both playing really well. So I think all three of them though will probably be, and also guys like Paul George and Jimmy Butler, they'll probably be making a good case this whole season for the MVP. Um, but yeah, we can move on to one of the teams that's been not so hot as of late, and That is the Atlanta Hawks. They made the Eastern Conference Finals last year. At the time of recording this, they're currently 4-8, and literally almost everyone on their team statistically has kind of dropped off a little bit from last year, except for maybe Cam Reddish. So, they've been pretty bad defensively, despite their front court's been healthy, like John Collins, Clint Capella, and all those guys. So, I guess the big question here is: do you think that the Hawks last year making the Eastern Conference Finals was it a bit of a fluke? Do you think they're a 1 year wonder? I feel like for me, in terms of like, are they a fluke in terms of like what's to come for this team down the line? I'm gonna say no because I think that they still have a lot of potential left. But are they a fluke in the NBA right now? And I'm probably gonna say yes because if we're thinking about it, the Eastern Conference Finals, that's usually your top two teams in the conference. And when I look at the East, I mean, I don't think they're better than the Nets. I don't think they're better than the Bucks, the Heat. I don't really think they're better than the Bulls or the Knicks. So, I mean, and even like the 76ers have played well. So that's a lot of teams that they're going to have to jump over. I think last year was more so the Sixers lost that series than the Hawks won, if that makes
Agreed.
sense. So, like, if the Sixers were playing like normal, if Ben Simmons wasn't playing so passive and Tobias Harris wasn't like struggling down the stretch,
Embiid had a meniscus tear in his knee that he was playing through also.
that as well. It just seemed like outside of Embiid and maybe Seth Curry, like all the Sixers just kind of folded. But if everyone's playing their best in that series, I think the Sixers would have won like pretty convincingly, probably in like five,
Agreed.
maybe 6 games. And that's not a knock against the Hawks. I just think that they're kind of in a bad situation right now because they're going to get that slander. But I don't know. I think that in terms of right now being one of those top teams, might be a fluke, but down the line, I think that they'll still be like one of the best young teams in the league.
Agreed. Agreed. And I like, I like their core of Trey Young, John Collins, Clint Capella, Kevin Herter. Like they have a good system. I think they just, you know, they need to focus on defense. And I think they have a lot of people that score and rebound, but do you have any perimeter defender that's going to shut down the best scorer on the other team? Probably not.
Yeah, and it definitely won't be Trey. so,
No.
but we can move on to someone who has been playing some great perimeter defense this year, and we kind of addressed him a little bit earlier, and that is Paul George, one of the top front runners in most people's opinion for the MVP award. I don't know how many people have him first, but a lot of people have him somewhere up there. So, do you think that no Kawhi Leonard for the foreseeable future, like until he comes back? Do you think that this could be an MVP caliber season for Paul George? And what do you think of the Clippers so far?
So I'm actually surprised that the Clippers have been doing better than they have been. We talked about it on our show last time or the collab video. I kind of figured this was a punt it year for the Clippers. Like him and Kawhi are signed for the next 3 years. Like they're locking in that as the core. And Kawhi is probably going to miss most of this season with a torn ACL. So it's like, do you really want to ride Paul George in the ground? Right now, he has the third highest usage rate in the NBA behind Luka and Giannis. And his counting stats are great. 26.7 points per game, 8 rebounds, 5.5 assists, 2.5 steals. Is he going to be able to keep this up for a full 82 games or however many he's going to play? Right now, he's averaging 35 minutes a game. It's the most since his time with the Thunder. He's played 48 and 54 games the last 2 seasons. So is he going to need that kind of load management where, later in the year, January, February, he's needing to take second nights of back-to-backs off? So that's just more what I worry is he's putting up great stats and the Clippers are above 500, but if you're not going to win it all this year, or if you're not pushing your chips in, is it really worth, the usage that he's getting right now?
Yeah. I mean, I think it is possible, but just because, like, that last season he had with OKC is what a lot of people would consider his best because, he's top three in
An
MVP
MVP finishing.
and also top three in, Defensive Player of the Year. So, like, he was doing just about everything. And we've seen Paul George in situations before, like with the Indiana Pacers. I know, like, early on they had some great teams, but after that, like, he didn't have much around him, like, after the injury. So, I feel like the difference between Paul George and Kawhi Leonard is that Paul George can be more of a floor raiser and Kawhi Leonard is more of a ceiling raiser. Like Paul George is that guy who he can bring your team to the playoffs, but Kawhi Leonard's going to take your team over the hump and get them to the championship. I think that they're both capable of doing that. And I don't know, I think that the Clippers, they're a well-rounded team. They proved it last year when they still defeated the Jazz without Kawhi. So I think that they could keep this up, and I think Paul George will be playing at an MVP level and maybe even Defensive Player of the Year level. He's been one of the top candidates for that as well that I've seen, but I think he'll probably finish top five in MVP. And if Kawhi does come back before the playoffs, then that's going to be a little scary for the NBA because they're not going to be expecting that come playoff time.
Would you want Kawhi back for the playoffs though? Hear me out because I know that sounds like really crazy, but coming off like a torn ACL, like let's say they get to the fourth, fifth seed with the roster they have now, then you're going to throw a wrench into it with a guy that hasn't played basketball in a year or so. That's probably going to be on a minutes restriction, and you're risking his long term health. Like, do you think like it would weigh out?
I mean, I think if he is like healthy, if he's good to go, then I think he should play. I feel like a lot of people are going too crazy with how like 3 or 4 years ago, his last year with the Spurs, how he sat out, and they're like, oh, he's just gonna sit out the whole year. But I think it's different because he did actually come back that season, and then he sat out again because he realized like, oh, my injury like was misdiagnosed basically, and then he held out like he wasn't trusting like the team doctor because obviously he was still having some pain somewhere. And then like the whole team turned against him, and then he just didn't want to come back after that meeting they had in March. So I think that he will come back. I don't think that the Clippers are in any rush to like force him back. So I don't think that they're necessarily hoping he does return, but I feel like he will return probably around a month or a month and a half before playoff time.
Okay, I hope he does. NBA is better with him.
Exactly. I mean, I think he's one of the best in the league. And now we get to talk about your favorite topic, the Washington Wizards, and how great they played. As we said at the beginning of the show, they're tied with my Chicago Bulls for the top of the Eastern Conference right now. And they have a lot more depth this year, too. So, really, what do you think of the Wizards so far this year, and what position do you think they could realistically end up at the end of the year?
So the Wizards kind of went like an overhaul, and I was a big proponent of trading Bradley Beal because I thought they needed to go through a rebuild, and right now they're proving me wrong. So new coaching. I mean, Scott Brooks had to go. I was a big fan of the hiring at first, but I definitely think he's an overrated name. He doesn't make good in-game adjustments. He doesn't have good rotations. He doesn't hold his players accountable. He's very passive. So the biggest improvement has been the defense. Last year, the Wizards allowed 118.5 points per game, which was actually most in the NBA. This year, they're allowing 104.8 points per game. And what have they seen the improvements with? Well, with the Westbrook trade, now they have Montrezl Harrell, who's a great interior defender. They have Kyle Kuzma, who's been good on the outside and perimeter. And I think it's kind of just a new look as well. Spencer Dinwiddie has provided some scoring off the bench. You're right. They have more depth. They're getting Thomas Bryant back from a torn ACL. Rui hasn't played this year yet. Daniel Gafford. So I think it's a lot of role players, and everybody kind of has their niche that they do, whether you're a bench, whether you're rebounding, whether you're a defender. But it seems like a very good culture, and I'm pleasantly surprised. Where we could finish, I'm going to say fifth seed. Like that's better than I thought we'd be at the beginning of the season.
Yeah, I mean, I will say I'm right there with you. I was wrong in thinking that there could be a team where Bradley Beal is like the primary option that could play at this level. I personally never could see it coming. And maybe that's just me, but I don't know. But I think they are real. I mean, they've even had injuries to Rui, to Thomas Bryant. Gafford missed a few games. Even Beal sat out like the game against Indiana, I believe, and then Dinwiddie was out another one. So, and they're still finding success. They're still at the top of the conference right now, and they've played some tough teams as well. So, in the old Lakers too, they've also been playing great. Montrezl Harrell, I just checked Basketball Reference. They had him 6 in the MVP ladder right now, which I don't know about that, but I mean, like,
Yeah, that's a little much. That's a little much.
but the point is, like, he's playing extremely well. He's like you said, his defense, like, historically, he's always been clowned kind of for his defense a little bit. People said he was overrated, but this year he's played pretty well. Kyle Kuzma, he's played great. He just showed up. I don't know if you saw that with that Cavs fan that had that sign or
Yeah.
or whatever. That's like LeBron got me my ring, and yeah, he said Cleveland wouldn't be anything without LeBron. That's the PG
Sure.
version. But and then KCP, I think that he's a great addition as well. I thought he was honestly the biggest loss in the Westbrook trade for the Lakers, but I mean, even he like probably isn't playing the best of his ability. Like I think the other two Lakers have been playing better, but he's still adding a lot to the team. So where I think they could end up, you said fifth seed. I think they could end up as a top six seed. I think they could avoid the play in, and I think that it's possible that given the right matchups they could have a run where people are like, I didn't see this coming, kind of like the Atlanta Hawks did last year, where they could get to the conference finals if they get like the right matchups. But I don't know. Maybe that's
Oh man, no, don't tease me with that. Wizards never gotten that far in my time as a fan, so
hey, I wouldn't mind if they got there as long as they get stopped in the conference finals by my Chicago Bulls. Then I
that's
guess
cool
we're
with
all good.
me.
But yeah, we can move on to the NBA trivia game to close out the show. Do you know how this works, or do you want me to explain it first?
You can explain it real quick.
Okay, so there are five different questions that I have. Each one has five hints, and if you get three total guesses for each question, and
Okay.
if you guess it correctly, then you get like if you guess it correctly with the least amount of hints, you get more points. So if you guess it right after one hint, you get 5 points. After two hints, you get 4 points,
All
and then
right.
it keeps going.
Sounds good.
If you use all three of your guesses on a certain question, and you get them all wrong, unfortunately, you get 0 points for that question. And then at the end, there's just one question with no hints about me in the NBA. So,
Okay.
all
Let's
right.
do it.
So the first question, first hint is now it could be anything with the NBA too, player, coach, team, whatever. But this former player started investing in real estate since he was a rookie and has since started his own business. Now,
I'm gonna need the next hint.
okay, and you can use two skips on each one. So that was your first skip. The second hint, this is for 4 points possible. This guy has the most career assists for a shooting guard in NBA history.
The Kobe Bryant?
It is not Kobe Bryant, and that's actually tough because he is so close to being first on that list. I think he's separated from like 3 or 4 assists. So
Okay.
that's a good guess. But all right, so the third hint, this is worth 3 points. You got one strike so far. Him and Hakeem Olajuwon were teammates on the Phi Slamma Jamma team and later in the NBA.
All right. I'm gonna say Clyde Drexler.
It is Clyde Drexler. All right,
Nice.
that's pretty good. So you got 3 points so far. I always say
All right.
it's good to try and get at least 10 in your run. So you're doing pretty good. You got
All
four more
right. Let's
questions.
go, baby. Let's
All right.
go.
So the second question, first hint, is this president of basketball operations became part owner of an esports team in a city whose mascot had the same name as the esports team.
All right. Next one.
The, the first hint's always the hardest. All right, so the second hint is he once said 3 point shots should be worth 2.5 points.
I'm gonna go. That's like a mid-range guy. I'm gonna go Rip Hamilton.
It is not Rip Hamilton. Um, I'm sorry, and then we'll go into the third hint, but just remember he is a president of basketball operations, part owner of an esports team. Their mascot had the same name as the esports team, and then he said 3 pointers should be worth 2.5 points. The third hint is he once traded away Kyle Lowry.
All right. So that's got to be someone for the Rockets. Uh, because Masai Ujiri. Is it Masai Ujiri?
It is not Masai Ujiri.
All right, then it's
That's
got to
tough.
be the guy for the Rockets. I have to think of it. Okay. I know it. I know it now. Kevin McHale.
Are you sure you want to guess Kevin McHale, or do you want me to read the next hint first?
I read the next 10.
Okay. The fourth hint is he won Executive of the Year in 2018, while one of his players was the league MVP that year.
Um, oh my God, Daryl Morey.
It is Daryl Morey.
I don't know why I thought Kevin McHale was GM. He was
He
coach.
was affiliated with the Rockets before. He was the coach for some time, but that's pretty good. You got 5 points. You're still on pace to get at least the 10.
All right, let's go.
Third question, first hint. This team has had multiple different players in their history win the Rookie of the Year, the Coach of the Year, and the Defensive Player of the Year.
Um, I will go Miami Heat.
It is not the Miami Heat.
All right, well, let's go to the next one then.
All right, so the second hint is their team name has been established and remained the same since before the conception of the NBA.
So it's an ABA team. Let's go Bucks.
It is not the Milwaukee Bucks.
Okay.
And now you got 2 strikes, so you got to be careful. You only get one more guess left
Oh, that's
on this
right.
question.
That's right.
So, all right, so the third hint is so far this season, this team is 29th in average fan attendance per game. And that includes like home and away games, like just the average.
All right, you got to go to the next one. I don't want to use my third strike on that.
Okay, the fourth hint is they won 0 playoff games in the 2010s decade.
0 playoff games in the 2010 decade. I'm going the Charlotte Hornets.
It is not the Charlotte Hornets. I hate to
Ah,
break it to you. You'll probably get it after the last one. The last one was pretty easy. This team just had the first pick in the NBA draft.
oh my gosh, the Pistons.
It was the Pistons. Yes.
Yeah, they are. I can see them being 29th in attendance.
So you
Okay.
still got five.
You know, it's funny. That was actually going to be my first guess. I was like, nah.
I had a feeling
Oh,
like I felt like that one probably would have been like the most likely to be guessed of the 5 pointers on this list. So I don't know. I was like, he might get it because no one's gotten a 5 pointer in the whole time doing this yet.
ah.
But you still got 2 more, and then you also got the question about me. 5 points right now. You need 5 more for the 10. Fourth question, first hint. This basketball stat. Now this is a basketball stat. Okay, has always been a part of the NBA since the league was formed.
Points.
It is not points. I'm sorry. So that's your first strike. You got 2 more guesses available. The second hint is the player that led the league in this stat last NBA season was Dylan Brooks.
PER.
It is not PER. um,
Ah.
so that's 2 strikes. You got 1 more guess available. We'll see. The third hint is the player that leads the NBA in this stat all time is Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, which might throw you off because you already guessed
True
point.
shooting percentage.
Is that your final guess?
Yeah.
It is not true shooting percentage. I'm sorry. Um, the correct answer was a personal foul. Um,
Oh my gosh. Oh, wow.
the next one
Um,
had like guys like DeMarcus Cousins in there and stuff. So
I was gonna say I actually have to wrap up.
All right, guys. So although Triple Play Fantasy was in a rush, I did reach out to him and I did ask him the 5 hints for the last question. So I'm just going to read them off for you guys and then show you how he did. So the first hint on the last question was this current NBA player goes by his middle name and his first name is actually James. The second hint is he became the first ever G League alum to be named an NBA All-Star. The third hint is he played his rookie season with the Detroit Pistons. The fourth hint is he hit the first game winner of the 2021 NBA playoffs. And the fifth hint is he won a championship last season. Now, when I asked Triple Play Fantasy these questions, he actually got it after the second hint, which means that he got 4 points. And this rounds out to 9 points total going into the bonus question. And as you can see, the correct answer for this one was Chris Middleton. So I just wanted to make that clear. I know we were in a rush, and I kind of wanted to still give him a chance because I felt like it was a little unfair if I didn't.
If I'm
uh,
sorry to cut it short. I have to get back to work because I have to
okay,
prep for my call in a couple minutes.
Okay, I'll ask you then just the bonus question here. It's just about me. It's just one question,
All
no
right,
hints.
all right, let's do it.
Uh, who is the only NBA player that's currently playing to respond to my Instagram DMs and follow my personal Instagram account? If you get this right, you get the 10 points, too.
Zach Levine.
It is not Zach Levine, and I thought you were going to get it because it's a former Bull and a current Wizard, Daniel Gafford.
Daniel, oh wow, that's awesome.
It was cool. I messaged him when he was on the Bulls, but yeah. I think we're gonna wrap it up here because he has to go. Hope you guys enjoyed it. You want to say any final thoughts to the fans?
Make sure that you check out both our YouTube channels because we got fire content.
Exactly, and we'll be collabing again in the future. Sorry, we kind of got this one in a rush. I think we did pretty well. So again, hope you guys enjoy. Thank you guys for watching, and we're out. Peace.
Catch you guys on the next one.